Анжела, куда мы улетаем?
На Мальдивы.
Мы улетаем или мы уезжаем?
Мы уезжаем, но это другие чуть-чуть Мальдивы, украинские. Ну и так неплохо. Поэтому все хорошо.
Окей, поехали.
Let's go. Да.
Tsar Experience.
Ты по Украине уже ездил на машине в город? Первый раз?
Roads in Ukraine, pretty interesting. Welcome to the Maldives, the Ukrainian Maldives. So, I remember I was back in Odessa maybe about a month ago. I made a video where I went to Buchek with Angela and we showed you exactly what you can do if you have a girl in Ukraine, you want to do something different than just hanging out in Odessa. Go to that beautiful part in the Delta, also nice castles around it. This time, we're on the other side of Odessa. Very close to Crimea. In fact, Crimea is going to be just over there a little bit more, well, a good bit more. Maybe if you were to sail, it'd take 2 hours to get over to Crimea. But basically, this is an island known as the Ukrainian Maldives. Как называется этот остров? Я забыл.
Джерелгач.
Чарлагач?
Да, что как-то так.
That's Ipatak. Charlahaj is the name of this island. It is marketed as the Ukrainian Maldives. Of course, we were in the Venice, Ukrainian Venice in Vilka, but was not quite Venice. But these so far, this is definitely the cleanest water and the best beach I have seen in Ukraine in over 10 years of being here. So definitely it is a big thumbs up so far. Not going to say it's exactly the Maldives. There's actually more people than I was expecting, but beautiful nature. So let's go take a look around.
Что мне понравилось.
Да?
Очень прикольно, очень красиво.
Definitely the best place by the seaside I have come to. Not the Maldives though. I think the vibe is a little bit more almost hippie-ish. I mean, I don't really see people are hippies per se, but you come, you pitch your tent, you hang out, you drink beer. There wasn't that many places to eat. It's all very basic. It's more, I wouldn't really say even rustic because there are only a few huts it seemed on the island. So, Ukrainian Maldives, more like Ukrainian hippie place, maybe something like Key West was back before it's commercialized. I think that's a little bit better as an analogy, but definitely very interesting place to come to and definitely not what I expected in Ukraine. Okay, so here we have a watermelon or arbuz, kavun in Ukrainian. People just sell the melons and whatnot that they have there. But this is how we refresh on the road, on a road trip in Ukraine.
До свидания. Не забудьте взять. Да что
Спасибо
за
большое.
съемка?
А, это YouTube канал рассказывает, как у нас в Украине и все такое.
Мы будем путешествовать. И мы были вчера. Это украинские Мальдивы. Потом Железный порт, а сегодня Кимборская косу.
Кимберский косу.
Коса,
Да,
да.
коса. А потом в
нет.
Херсоне, где Олешки, как это на русском?
Там, где пустыня.
Олешки.
Да,
Да.
Олешки.
Супер.
Всё, до
Окей, до свидания,
До
спасибо.
свидания.
I think these are the worst roads that I have been on. Definitely, this is not for someone who's not willing to take a bit of a venture, a bit of a risk, and where you might end up. And this is a segue into what happened the first night when we drove from Odessa to Skedosk. And there on the highway, just near Nikolaev, I was turning on a bend. There you see how bad the potholes are. So there was like a dip, and then there was actually a hole, and like that, boom. Not one tire, two tires punctured. And so we pull over. Well, I pull over the car. I think, okay, how am I going to deal with this? I only thought one tire was punctured at that point. I look at the wheel, and suddenly someone has stopped already. I thought, that's weird. Again, another little bit of a creepy situation, because why someone stops so quickly? Have they seen? Are they going to help me? Have they come to like rob me or something? Never really sure in that situation, but it turns out the guys behind us also hit exactly the same hole.
Иди стань на место, да,
You know, we're on the side of the road, had to change the two tires, whatnot, and actually a taxi driver stopped because I called, of course, the rental company straight away. I want to know, okay, what's the service number for this situation? There's no number, according to the rental company. But this been Ukraine, a taxi driver, a young guy in a taxi stopped, saw the situation, two cars inside the road, stopped, basically helped me also get the wheels off pretty quickly. Went with the other guy, took his wheel as well, and we went and we had it fixed in the middle of the night, and got it all done. You know, obviously things are pretty cheap also to get done here, so that was great. Came back. So I think one thing that occurred to me, and lessons for you from this anecdote about bursting the tires, is, well, first of all, you got to be very careful of the roads here because they are diabolical. Number two, Russian is really important if you're going to come to these smaller areas or non-touristic areas, because if you did not speak Russian or Ukrainian, it would have been really, really hard to communicate. Well, just look how bad these roads are. So, and number three, how entrepreneurial a lot of Ukrainians are. But the taxi driver came, helped me out, gave me great service. Of course, I paid him accordingly here for Ukraine for that. And just how, I mean, nice people were. I mean, the guys who got out of the car, they were also really helpful and friendly and stuff. So Ukrainians in that sense, always great. This kind of stereotype of people there are a little bit rough, unfriendly, it's complete bullshit.
So I saw some of your video, like in Ukraine, in Lviv, and you also interviewed a guy who spoke Ukrainian, I remember.
Okay.
So I saw some of your videos.
You guys are French, I'm guessing.
Yes, you are living in Ukraine.
Yeah, in Odessa,
Okay.
mainly. In summer. So why Ukraine?
Because I'm studying. Yeah, we live in Ukraine, and I'm studying Ukrainian.
Venez en Ukraine. Venez en Ukraine. Parce que c'est très peu connu. It's not very well known in Western
Tu
Europe.
peux parler en français. c'est
En
pas
français.
grave.
Ouais, faut dire en Ukraine, c'est super beau. Regardez. On se croirait dans le Var, et en fait, on est en Ukraine.
Ok, super,
magnifique.
c'est bon, c'est intéressant. Merci.
You're
Merci
welcome.
les gars.
De rien. T'es content?
Я не эксперт грибами.
Так ты всегда, я хочу грибы.
Да.
Ну, я слышала,
Самое вкусное я хочу. Только этого.
самое вкусное. А вот это?
Значит, в банках это варенье из калины.
М.
Есть варенье из сосновой шишки.
Ага.
Это лекарство.
чего?
Оно для легочников хорошо.
А березовый сок какую цену у вас?
100 гривен бутылечек.
Есть сок тоже, да?
Березовый сок. Я его пила когда-то.
Вот это масляк. Значит, здесь они соленые.
А вот
А,
это.
как вкус?
Вот так, да.
We finally made it to the Kinburn Spits. This actually, little scene here is a little bit more what I expected in terms of the Maldives than actually Jebel Hajj and the Maldives, the Ukrainian Maldives, but pretty neat. And it's now beginning of September, almost no tourists, just very relaxed, amazing weather. Water is pretty clean, pretty nice. I think maybe it was a bit nicer at the Maldives, alright. It was exceptional sand and water there, but still pretty neat. And I can't believe I never even knew about these places. I never came down here, and after all my years in Odessa, and this one's a lot closer. We came out from Charkiv, which is a small town. It was very Soviet, it was very basic, definitely something for Mr. Bold and Bankrupt's channel more than for mine, in terms of that little town by the sea. Not really called the Maldives, but pretty cool.
Прикольно.
Да, как кимборская коса.
Ой, тут красиво, прикольно. Но уже хочется на сушу. И с другой стороны оказаться.
So now I'm in the wonderful town of Nova Kakhovka, and that's probably a place you've never heard of. At least I had never heard of it until pretty recently, but they have a huge hydroelectric dam on the river Dnipro here, and that is why actually the city was created. It is probably one of the nicest small towns that I've seen in Ukraine. Not that I've been to so many of them, but here it is very pleasant. You have a lot of nice parks, things seem well maintained, and they have, of course, the reason why I'm here, that is Trubetskovo Winery. So this is a famous vineyard. I would call it the most noble vineyard in Ukraine, and I would say that having tasted the wine, of course Ukraine is not the most famous country wine, but it does have some vineyards here in the south. It is probably my second favorite wine in Ukraine, but I think all combined with the history of the grounds and how nice it is with the restaurant and the tour, it's probably my favorite vineyard. So overall, how would I rate coming to this side of Odessa? Now, I think if you're on a trip to Ukraine and you don't live here part of the year at least, you're not spending like a few months, I think it's too far really to go through the hassle of coming all the way out here, because it's really actually an Kherson excursion trip rather than Odessa excursion trip. So the last video on Buchak is a lot more relevant to if you were just hanging out in Odessa. But if you are obviously spending a lot of time, then you can consider coming out here. It was not as easy to navigate my way around as I have been in obviously Buchak. It was a lot further. The roads were worse here, although I saw some pretty terrible roads in Buchak as well. But I just found driving here was like really problematic without an SUV. Probably not worth considering. But if you are dating someone in Ukraine, you want to take a little bit of a trip and do something a bit more interesting and romantic, then you can consider a trip down here, especially if you live in Kherson, you're spending time in Kherson, then it is pretty cool and the weather is nice. Definitely for me it was worth exploring, because obviously I live to a certain extent in Ukraine. Well, I live in Eastern Europe all year round, so I have lots of time to go and visit these smaller, less traveled parts. So that is this region. We can't call it a cool name like Buchak, I guess southern Kherson region, you know, between Kherson and Crimea. That is what to expect here.
Підписуйтесь на канал, ставте лайки, приїжджайте до України.
Tsar Experience.